Hello everybody, I'm Ed Carvajal, and this is Sunday, July 12th, the day after UFC 251. This is my Sunday submission. I do the 7 takeaways piece for MMAnews.com. I usually write one for every pay-per-view event, so this is the first of what I hope to be many news updates for the week. What better way to start than with one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year. This time in July is usually when UFC does their international fight week. It's usually some big headline card in Las Vegas. Obviously, the pandemic changed that. A lot of things changed because of the pandemic, which brought us to Fight Island. And then with the pandemic, the original main event, Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns, was supposed to headline. Gilbert Burns actually tested positive for COVID-19, so they had to pull him from the event. And then in steps Jorge Masvidal. So the 7 takeaways piece is usually some things that I noticed. There's obviously more than 7 to take away from any event. You'll see a lot of pieces like that on the internet. So I just wanted to go further into some other things that went on. But if you'd like to read it, please check out MMAnews.com and read all of my takeaways from all the past pay-per-views. So one of the things, the first thing I took away from it was obviously the news. There's always other news going on during any fight week. So one of the news pieces that seemed to have been circulating throughout the course of this part of the year, especially with the UFC during the pandemic, you got guys like Jorge Masvidal, who stepped in on 6 days' notice to face Kamaru Usman. Guys like him, John Jones, Henry Cejudo retired. I mean, he's somehow was still chiming in during this event. There's a lot to be said about pay structure and things like that, and guys wanting to fight for their worth. And so one of the things that happened, obviously, was when we thought we weren't going to see Masvidal because he said he wouldn't step in until he found his worth. One of the things I first took away leading into the event was the fact that he agreed to fight on 6 days' notice. So whatever the agreement was, he's admitted in a bunch of interviews that whatever they came to, and Dana White said during the post-fight press conference when he brought up, we don't really know what the deal was between him and Masvidal, and we'll probably never know, but whatever it was made him happy enough to step in on 6 days' notice, cut 20s, right? He was 190, so he cut like 30 pounds to get to 170 and face Kamaru Usman, and that's obviously the biggest takeaway would be the main event. An unprepared Jorge Masvidal still went 5 rounds with the current welterweight champion. I know a lot of people are like upset, or not upset, but they call the fight boring. Jorge Masvidal's been fighting for 16 years or so. I mean, if you look at the way he came into the fight business, it's actually featured on that Kimbo Slice documentary on the Fight Pass, Fight Lore. You'll see that he's always been fighting. So they used both him and Usman said that he's a dog. Masvidal called himself a dog in a fight. So did Kamaru Usman. I mean, yes, Usman dominated him, won. But what do you expect from someone that only had less than a week to prepare for a fight, right? It was crazy that he went that long, and in the post-fight, I'll tell you what I noticed about it. I mean, it seemed like, I don't want to say, I mean, you'll see it a lot. Like, success and fame can kind of be like a drug or something, and it seems like the type of person Masvidal is. He was so disappointed with himself in that fight. If that was happening to him, whether it be money or fame or the success that he's finally well deserved to after being in the fight game for so long. But you could see afterward he was so upset with himself. He kept talking about in the post-fight press conference how he wanted to go running and doing because he knew the worst thing about that fight for him was his cardio. He wished he had done more to prepare, but he didn't really have time for that. You know what I mean? The way it came to be, of course, numbers made him happy, but the way the fight came to be, really to me it showed he's still that guy that fought in the back. Like there is glory in combat, and regardless of like Khabib is a guy like that. Khabib doesn't need money. He likes to compete. Masvidal, it looks like the loss reinvigorated his desire to compete. So a prepared Jorge Masvidal versus Kamaru Usman. Even Usman said, that it was still a tough fight, and I think maybe this is one fight we could see down the road again, if both men have a full camp. And then the thing is too, with the pandemic, the full camp really doesn't exist because of all the restrictions and shutdown. People are limited to who they can train with, who they can spar with. So it's one of those. It's one of those things that that you really have to look at and sort of kind of give everybody not a pass or make an excuse for them, because obviously Usman is now it's a 12-fight win streak, but it's one of those things that you're just kind of like, I wonder what it prepare for, because his cardio would probably be good if he had a full camp, right? I mean, that's part of training, that's part of preparing for a fight. So I have a feeling we'll see that fight again. I think Usman has a tougher task ahead of him with Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is definitely not somebody to overlook just because he's not as popular as these guys. You know what I mean? Like, Gilbert Burns has been busy. Dana White actually used him as an example. I forget, Dos Santos, I think, was one of the fighters that had the media ask, why don't you use me more? And Dana White was like, you can fight as much as you want. And Gilbert Burns was the example he put out there. You just kind of have to put yourself out there to fight. I mean, and this, where social media is part of a fighter's marketing strategy, I don't see any way to disagree with Dana White there. So anyway, Fight Island. One of the things that folks were concerned with was the how hot it is in Abu Dhabi, but just if you watch the, I think they did it at the beginning of the ESPN broadcast, but at the beginning of the Fight Pass broadcast of the early prelims, they did a walkthrough of the whole infrastructure that was built there, and then in the post-fight press conference, Dana White said that a lot of the complaints were that people were overheated and hot. And if Abu Dhabi is known for anything, it's for like their hospitality and comfort, and even he was impressed with how they changed that this time around and made it for comfortable, so that everyone was comfortable. Dana White was even wearing a suit at the post-fight press conference. He used that as reference. Like, if as hot as it is, they definitely made it cool in there. So we're probably going to see them there again too, just because of with everything going on and all the international fighters on the UFC roster. I wouldn't be surprised. Dana White said it leading into the week after the weigh-ins. He said that they would probably be back there September, October. I don't know if that's for Khabib versus Justin Gaethje. Obviously, Khabib lost his father, so he's got to he needs time to deal with that. So moving on, Jiri Prochazka, rising light heavyweight champion, got signed to the UFC. This was his debut in the UFC, and I tell you what, it is one of those. It is definitely a fight that I was looking forward to. I was scared in the first round because I didn't like Prochazka fighting someone like Volkanovski with his hands down, but it definitely made for an exciting fight because there was always that threat of a knockout coming, and then obviously it came when Prochazka, his antics and all his shenanigans with the hands down, it threw off Volkanovski's timing. Me, I'm an old school. Before I did jiu-jitsu, I did karate, so having your hands up is always made important to me in Nation-Ryu karate. If you got your hands down, the likelihood of getting knocked out was high. But I guess when you're fighting at the level these guys fight at and you're comfortable with it, for Prochazka it worked. So his win over Uzdemir Uzdemir was ranked number 7 in the light heavyweight division. So now we likely have Uzdemir you know, getting kicked out and Prochazka stepping in. His debut fight, he put himself in the top 10 in the light heavyweights in the UFC. So now, you know, well deserved. He's a former rising light heavyweight champion. So now we get to see all kinds of fun matchups, you know, with all the other guys in that division. I don't know if that style of fighting is going to work well with him. If we even see John Jones, you know, John Jones is one of those people holding out for fight money. So we'll see what happens. But it's nice to see a fresh name in the light heavyweight division, and it makes, you know, something like that happening just can reinvigorate all the possible matchups to be made. Because you know, with especially light heavyweight, John Jones is just dominating everybody, whether or dominating or winning, you know, by decisions that people weren't happy with. Either way, he's still winning. So it's nice to get some fresh names in there and stir things up a bit. Another fight on that card that stood out to me was the on the main card, Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade. That was a rematch from their UFC 237 event. Rose, it was pretty much, it went how I thought it was going to go, which was similar to their first fight. Because a lot of folks, you know, people forget. You know, people when someone loses, they always focus on the winner. And if you look at the strawweight title picture from when Rose had the belt, lost it, and then you know, Andrade had it for one fight, fought Weili Zhang. Now Weili Zhang has that title. It's a lot of confusion, a lot to follow. But Rose, you know, was winning that first fight the same way she won the entire fight. So she just made people kept calling the first fight a fluke. It's not a fluke if it's not a fluke because that's what Andrade wanted to do. She wanted to impose her strength and grappling on her. She actually got a couple of throws in this fight too, but it's not a fluke. It's more like a mistake on Rose's part, where she made the mistake, and I'm talking about the first fight. She made the mistake of trying to engage Andrade there in the grappling exchanges, where obviously Andrade was stronger than her. So in this rematch, she looked really good because on the ground she defended well to get back to her feet. She admitted that she had fun in there again, and she didn't do anything. You know, it's one thing to I've seen it happen before. I remember when Tito Ortiz and Randy Couture fought each other. I thought Tito Ortiz probably could have done better if he didn't try to. You know, it's one of these. I hate to use the term of pissing match, but it's like a pissing match. We want to see who's good at this one thing in our game, and sometimes you have to just admit that you're not that good. You know, the other person could be better or stronger. So it looks like Rose did that because she knew she was better. She had the better range and striking footwork. Andrade showed some improvement too with her head movement and stuff. It was a split decision win for Rose. So Andrade obviously made some improvements herself, but Namajunas definitely got back into strawweight title picture. I don't see her nose was damaged, so we probably won't see that soon. Her and Weili Zhang, but Zhang's mentioned her a couple of times, and that's gonna be, if you're for technical strikers out there, I mean, that's gonna be a fun fight. I almost want to say it might be as good as Zhang versus Joanna. You know, that's already like fight of the year conversation, so that's definitely one to keep an eye on. Other than that, I am glad that Rose is back having fun in fighting in MMA. The bantamweight title picture, I have to say Aljamain Sterling needs to get his number one shot. I just saw on Twitter before I started recording this, he voiced his opinion again. You know, like, what does he have to do to get his title shot? You know, they brought Jose Aldo in off of a loss to fight Peter Yan. Yan and Sterling have already said they want to fight each other, and I'm glad Yan said that at the post-fight press conference again, that Aljamain Sterling is the guy that needs to get the shot next. You know, I have a feeling they're going to make him wait still. I have a feeling it might be Peter Yan versus Marlon Moraes. only because Moraes has that win over Sterling, and he's the one that lost to Cejudo to get the 135 belt. The 135 belt, just the bantamweight division seems to be, I don't want to say a mess ever since with the whole thing that happened with TJ Dillashaw, but it seems like that title doesn't stay with anyone for too long, and I just want to read Henry Cejudo. He's retired, but he doesn't see. I have a feeling we're gonna see him come back, because he tweeted after Peter Yan won, "Congrats, precious Peter Yan, but you absolutely suck. You'd be lucky to make it past 2 rounds with Triple C." Called him an ugly potato. Used hashtag #RentAChamp. Like, what's the point of that? If you're retired and you feel like you've accomplished it anyway, keep your. You don't see George St. Pierre talking junk about Usman and everyone else. Anyway, that's that. But Peter Yan, he looks like he wants to give that fight to Aljamain Sterling, and man, if anybody's earned it, Aljamain Sterling has. But you can't really argue against Marlon Moraes and Peter Yan either. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I hope they give it to Sterling. You got Sterling and Yan have been agreeing to fight each other before this happened. So hopefully, I think we're going to see more things happen in combat sports with the pandemic going on, if they make sense logistically. If you have fighter A and fighter B negative tested for COVID-19, they can get to the place they're having the fights. The fight's going to get booked. I mean, if you look at all the new signees that came in, all the guys coming up from the regionals, I think we're going to see a lot of that. We're going to see a lot of that as long as restrictions are in place that are keeping fans from going to events. I mean, the whole situation is terrible for sports, but I mean, we might have to give some Dana White some props for keeping MMA going, because MMA is coming back. Bellator is coming back. Talking about coming back later this month. Combate America's already announced they're coming back in August. LFA is holding 4 events this month. Legacy Fighting Championship, Legacy Fighting Alliance. That they that's one of the people that feed into the UFC gets guys from LFA, a lot of fighters from LFA. So and Ryzen's coming back in August too. So talking about Prochazka coming from Ryzen, they're going to hold 2 back events with fans in August. 22 and 23, I believe, are the event numbers. So things are getting better, but MMA is definitely moving forward. Hopefully they can keep up the pace. But on to UFC 251. Alexander Volkanovski, he picked up that second victory against his rematch against Max Holloway. A lot of folks, and I don't think I mentioned this enough in my 7 takeaways piece as I look at it. I mean, it was a split decision win. Holloway looked better to me. I actually thought he was winning. I didn't think Volkanovski was going to win this fight. But maybe there's something when you watch MMA fights and you think about, never mind what you know about the sport as a longtime fan, or even if you're a martial artist at the hobbyist level. I've got 20+ years martial arts training experience. I got a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, brown belt in Isshinryu Karate. I've had my share of competition and fights and stuff, but I've never competed. I would never think that I'm on the level of any of these guys. But so I do see things a little differently, and I don't think many judges have that experience. So one thing, commonality I see with decisions that have happened like this in the past is if a fighter is moving backward continuously, and one fighter is moving backward continuously and one is moving forward, and I'm not saying like in a stick and move type of situation. I mean to the point that they move back more than they move forward. More times than not, I've seen judges score against that. So that's what I think happened to Holloway here. Again, it says a lot for everyone. Even Dana White said they got to do something about the officiating in while they're in Abu Dhabi. Partly because of the the judging from the Volkanovski-Holloway fight, but also with that stoppage. Jose Aldo, I think, took more of a beating than he should have. I don't normally like to agree with Ariel Helwani, but I do think that fight should have been stopped sooner. It's definitely something, it's definitely, it's a double-edged sword, though. You stop the fight too soon, you get people saying, oh, that's a poor stop it, you know what I mean? So, it's really up to the ref or whatever, but overall, that stoppage and the judging for this fight in particular left a poor taste in a lot of folks' mouth. And I don't think I wrote enough about that on the 7 takeaways piece. I mentioned that Holloway looked better, but he didn't do enough to convince the judges, and that's one thing Dana White said. You can't leave this to the judges you can't leave this to the judges for a fight, especially when it comes to a title fight. It looks like finishes are always, you can't argue a finish. So, and I know that's something that Volkanovski wanted to do too. Even leading into it, he said he wanted he wanted the rematch as much as Holloway did, because when there's always that doubt. At the end of the day, a judge's decision, it's only the opinion of 3 people watching the fight, and you never know what their experience is watching fights. So that's where we're all with that. Excuse me. Do they do it again? Yeah, sure. They should definitely do it again, but I don't know if fans want to see something that soon. I think it would be best let Volkanovski try to defend that title against a couple of guys, and have Holloway pick up a couple of wins, in the fashion that he picks them up in. I don't know if I think it was a robbery. I did think he was winning, though, so I don't know if I can call it a robbery, again, because, I try to be as objective as possible. Holloway was landing a lot, and he seemed confident and tuned in the whole fight, but I do think that, they try to fight as smart as possible. That doesn't mean the judges are as plugged in as they are, so... there was a lot to take away from that event, but that's the gist of what I used for my 7 takeaways piece. The low blows, that two-point deduction, obviously cost that fighter the fight. But I don't. There was a lot of low. I can't pronounce the guy's name, but during the prelims, there was definitely a theme of low blows during the night. Another thing that stood out was the submissions. I have to comment on this. Was Paige Van Zandt's last fight too. The submissions that happened from this event, her loss was one of them. The standout one was Makwan Amirkhani's submission win. How he transitioned from the arming guillotine to the anaconda choke. That was beautifully done. A sign of a clean choke, just for folks that have never been choked out unconscious, is usually when the guy getting choked is still trying to fight out of it and just gets put out. That's as clean as it gets, because you don't have any windpipe pressure or anything. You know what I mean? There's something going on with the guy getting choked that he thinks, I can still get out of it. And I'm speaking from experience, because I've been put out a few times myself. And the last time I was put out, when they woke me up, the first thing I said was, I thought I was getting out of it. So it looks like that's what happened with Amir Khani's choke, but that's just a sign of a really clean choke. And then Paige Van Zandt, so this was the last fight on her contract, and most of her losses are by submission. So setting up this fight against Amanda Ribas was one that it almost seemed like it was like she was pretty adamant about testing free agency. In the post-fight press conference, Dana White even said she should test free agency. So you got to think about making this match. Amanda Ribas, and her stock rised a lot, obviously, with this win. Her personality is great. People love her. But she's got a black belt in judo, black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. and you know that's one of the holes in Paige Van Zandt's game is her submission, you know, prowess. She doesn't suck. She's gotten better. She's switched camps, especially since she left. She left. Sorry, I got a text message. Especially since she left Team Alpha Male to switch to ATT Portland, and you can see that in her fight with Rachel Ostovich. But you know that there's levels to grappling, and she was coming off an injury. I mean, coming off an injury, a long layoff. It sucks to say, but it's like they set her up to lose, and you know, I do hope she either whatever she does, she can make more money doing other things. Obviously, she said she makes more money with her influencer stuff on Instagram. I think Bellator would treat her a lot better. Maybe she goes to one championship. You know, but either way, if she wants to fight, there's places she can fight, and maybe she'll get a little bit more even matched competition, because it was a little unfair for her last fight. But I guess we'll see soon where she goes from there. But two more events to go from Abu Dhabi. I personally am looking forward to them. I think I do like that these events have been on ESPN Red as opposed to ESPN Plus, so it lets me get more you know, my eyeballs on more fighters and events. I feel like my analysis has suffered during the ESPN Plus era, but so there are some pluses to the pandemic, and but yeah, MMA is coming back full swing. I think MMA News, we were opening up our coverage. You know, we've got news about Rising Combate Americas, UFC, so and we're going to be pushing more video content. So if you like this, please let me know. Follow me on Twitter at Carbazel. That's spelled Carbazel. Make sure you check out MMAnews.com for all your MMA news. We're usually around the clock putting stuff out. So if you like this, let me know. If you have questions, hit me up on Twitter, and I'll try to do it in the next one. But this is something we're playing with, so if you guys like it and want to see more, feedback is appreciated. I apologize for looking away. I'm just looking at the updates that come. It's Sunday after, so there's still things coming out. Gilbert Burns is ready to go back. Well, that's one thing. He's ready to fight again, so I'm looking forward to seeing him come back. That Usman fight should be nice. And make sure you check us out, Facebook, Twitter, MMAnews.com. And I guess that's it for today. Let me know what you guys think. Enjoy the rest of your week.